Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, January 6th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about the Georgia Senate runoff election results. Many of us thought that this election would be drawn on 3-4 days, as it was on the presidential level. However, the state of Georgia did something very different in terms of the way that they counted their ballots, and they did it very efficiently, and they were able to get us our results extremely quickly. By the time I went to sleep last night around 3 a.m., I saw the near similar results that I see this morning. Jon Ossoff had taken the lead, and Raphael Warnock had become the projected winner in the Georgia Senate runoff special election. Now, what's interesting about the results is that people didn't necessarily expect the Democratic Party to win by this large of a margin. But there was one part of the entire election process that seemed to have been delegitimized in 2020, but brought back thanks to this Senate poll. Now, these Senate numbers, it's polling data, and I'm not going to say in the future, polling data is going to be 100% accurate, but we've seen a trend here. In 2018, the polling numbers were very strong. They were, the results versus the actual predictions, very good. 2020, not so much whatsoever, actually. And I think that largely had to do with the fact that Donald Trump was on the ballot, because we normally would say it underestimated Republicans if we were just basing it off of 2016 and 2020, but Donald Trump was not on this Georgia Senate runoff ballot, and we'll talk about what the implications of him not being on the ballot were, and also, based off the polling data itself, they predicted both an Ossoff and Warnock victory, and it looks as if we're going to get something very similar, off by less than a percentage across both seats in terms of the margins of victory for these incoming senators. So looking at, actually, Jon Ossoff hasn't been projected by the New York Times or the Associated Press, so I'm not going to refer to him as that, but we'll also talk about why, with an almost absolute certainty, the Democratic Party will win back control of the United States Senate. So looking at Raphael Warnock's seat, this was a race that was hotly contested. The reason why we actually didn't see this race at least super close between the two candidates back in 2020 is because there were a multitude of candidates running in this race. There was Raphael Warnock, there was Kelly Loeffler, Doug Collins, Deborah Jackson, Matt Lieberman. These were all candidates that were representing either the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, and of course, they are going to split the votes amongst their respective parties. So Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler ended up in a runoff because they were the top two performing Democrats. Kelly Loeffler was the incumbent appointed Republican senator. Raphael Warnock was just the favorite in the race for a pretty significant period of time. Looking up at David Perdue's seat, the reason why this one went into a runoff was not because of Jon Ossoff, but because of the Libertarian candidate Shane Hazel. In fact, he's probably more conservative than David Perdue on some points, but looking at his implication on the race, he is the sole reason that this race went to a runoff. He's the reason why this race went into a runoff election. Had Shane Hazel not been on the ballot, David Perdue would have already been reelected as a United States Senator. So when you're looking at the original election, one would only assume that David Perdue would have it in the bag. He only needs 0.31% out of the remaining 2.4% to win the election, but he just couldn't get it. And there's a multitude of reasons for that. But actually, looking at the results so far, the live forecast, the New York Times Needle, which was actually one of the only networks to actually call a Biden victory in Georgia immediately. They called it nearly as soon as polls closed in Georgia. Warnock is expected to win by 2 points, and then Ossoff is expected to win by 1%. Where do you see that? Well, you see that based off the preliminary polling data. So when I'm looking at some of these results based off of the expected New York Times Needle and the results that have already been reported in the Georgia Senate special, in the Georgia regular, I find no pathway for the Republican Party to win that Ossoff seat, and obviously Warnock is already the projected winner. So where does this put us on our Senate map? Well, the Democratic Party is inching extremely close to a Senate majority. Last night on my live stream, I declared the Democratic Party had officially won the Senate majority, and if I was a network making my own projections, I would stand by that. I would have already characterized these. But since I'm giving you guys something that isn't just my own point of view on the race, I'm going to abide by the Associated Press. Usually I'm going to wait until they actually make their projection, but looking at the election results so far and what the outstanding vote is telling us, the Republican Party has technically no pathway to the United States Senate. Unless Kamala Harris switches parties, it's not happening. Because these two Georgia seats, first of all, one of them has a much bigger implication than the other, and it's actually pretty convenient for Jon Ossoff. Looking at these results, these are two seats that the Democratic Party needed to win to win control of the United States Senate. Just one wouldn't be enough. Both would be enough. And it looks as if Jon Ossoff, a little-known name back in 2017, if you remember him, he ran for the Georgia 6th congressional race, and I find it going full circle. Very interesting. He was one of the first elections of Trump's presidency, and he will be the last election of Trump's presidency. And we're talking about either a runoff race or a special election, but both of which took place in Georgia. And surprisingly enough, Georgia's 6th district made a very big implication on the race outcome in both of these. But Jon Ossoff is also someone who has a first. He's at least has a record. He has the record for the most money raised for a House Democrat candidate in United States history, $30+ million, and for a House Democrat in the United States Senate, at least vying for a Senate position. He has raised over $100 million to run for Senate. Over $100 million. That's insane. He has broken a record there. He has broken a record in the United States House of Representatives. So when you're looking at Jon Ossoff as a person, for someone who has never won political office before today, even though it's not projected yet, it's probably going to be within the next few hours as we start to get that final 2% reported, he has raised a lot of money. And it'd be unfortunate for him if that didn't necessarily pay off. But this is a race that was heavily invested to by the Republican Party as well. David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler both raised nearly $100 million each. So it was almost as if the Democratic Party was matched in terms of their efforts about fundraising money in the Georgia Senate runoff elections. But based off everything we saw last night, almost immediately, we knew the Democratic Party was going to win. It wasn't an absolute certainty, but Warnock and Ossoff were always in the expected margin of victory by the needle since 7:30 onward. Always. There was a very small period of time where there were some lackluster results for the Democratic Party in some of the counties they should have done better in. But after the numbers started pouring in, these were counted exceptionally fast. I think we were at maybe 60% by 8:30 p.m. We saw, not 8:30 p.m., I think 9 p.m. We saw Warnock and Ossoff start to take the lead. And it was overcame for a very small period of time. But since then, since that moment, Warnock had remained in the lead, and Ossoff now has taken the lead back in the regular election. And what this means is that if Ossoff maintains this lead, which I can guarantee you he will, but I'm not going to make that projection yet, Ossoff will be the next United States Senator. And when I was talking about implications, Ossoff will be in for 6 years. Ossoff is not a 2-year senator. He's not going to go in like a House of Representatives member like he originally vied for back in 2017. No, that's not going to be him. He is going to serve to 2026. And I can guarantee it, Georgia is going to be more favorable to the Democratic Party in 26 than it would be in 22. And looking at Warnock, he's going to head off into 2022. But given the fact that Kelly Loeffler has pretty much indicated she's not going to concede this election, she says that there's a pathway to victory after the networks already projected it for Raphael Warnock. I could see her trying to make a rerun in 2022. She could be, a Martha McSally type situation, except she'd be handing the same Senate seat back to the Democratic Party. But even if she chooses not to run, Raphael Warnock is someone who definitely would fare well in a midterm election. I think Jon Ossoff would as well, because Georgia has shown us that it was not just an anomaly that it voted for the Democratic Party on the presidential level, that the Democratic Party has some type of appeal to these suburban and minority voters that isn't enough for the Republican to win. The Republican Party had relied on the suburban, white, and rural voters in this state for decades. As Stacey Abrams said, the Republican Party took it for granted. They took for granted the amount of support they saw and experienced in this state. And they paid the price for it in 2020. Donald Trump went in extremely confident, saying, "Why am I even in Georgia? I'm going to win Georgia." You didn't. You didn't win Georgia. Republicans went into this race thinking all they would need is just a few percentage points, not even, less than a percentage point, less than half a percentage points across both races. 0.6 actually in the special election, 0.3 in the regular election. They couldn't get it. Why? Well, first things first, they never conceded the presidential election. Donald Trump's refusal to concede meant that these Republicans could not go in there and argue there should be a check on a President Biden. I can guarantee you, if Donald Trump conceded the election right when he lost, 4 days after the election, then we would have seen 2 Republicans win. The Republican Party is paying the price for what Donald Trump has done in terms of not accepting the election results. I actually just took a break from watching the congressional certification of the Electoral College votes to record this video because they're entering into a 2-hour debate about Arizona. But realistically, nothing's going to come of that. The Republican up there saying, me and 60 of my colleagues, hate to break it to you, but there's 435 House of Representatives members. It's not going to be this, oh, me and my 60 colleagues. Okay. Like, what does that mean for the American people that 60 colleagues of yours and the Republican Party want to contest the election results when it's very clear that that's not the overwhelming majority of the House of Representatives? That's 14% of House Republicans. It's not 14% of House Republicans, 14% of the House itself. right? So when you're looking at what the Republican Party is currently doing in terms of contesting the election results, that's clearly not something that helped Georgia Republicans. Because if it was, they would have won these Senate seats. And the problem still stands. The problem for the Republican Party in Georgia wasn't just Donald Trump's rhetoric, but also Donald Trump just not being on the ballot. You see, if this was a race where Donald Trump was heavily involved in, I can guarantee it, this race probably would have ended up a little bit differently. If Donald Trump had won the state on the presidential level, it probably would have ended up differently. Just because him saying that the election results are not legitimate and that Georgia was a rigged election. Think about it. If you were a voter who voted for the Republican Party in the past and even voted for, Republicans down ballot, but voted for Joe Biden, and Donald Trump is telling you that your ballot was illegitimate or that you are part of a rigged system to win the election, you're probably not going to vote with the Republicans who are supporting him in that effort. Notably, Kelly Loeffler, who announced the day before the runoff election that she was going to contest the election results. That was horrible political maneuvering. I think she was just inspired by the amount of people at the rally and said something that she really shouldn't have. But I don't think that was anything that really helped her, especially since she lost by not necessarily the narrowest margin, but not as narrow as the presidential level, but still lost by thousands of votes. You could argue that maybe she would have gotten closer had she not made that statement. And David Perdue, running ahead of Kelly Loeffler, largely because he's more popular than her. He's more well-known than her. But he's only running ahead of her by 0.4%. And while that would have made a difference on the presidential level, because this is a runoff race, Jon Ossoff is already above 50%. And we're going to talk about really briefly why I expect this race to be called sometimes later on. So we can actually go down. Let's go ahead and see where the outstanding vote remains for the Ossoff-Perdue race, and you will actually see exactly why. Because of the estimated votes remaining, a lot of blue. Look at that. They're expecting 17,000 more Ossoff votes out of DeKalb County. Fulton County, 9,000 more. If we just subtract them, actually, we can just go 15,000 in DeKalb, 7,000 in Fulton, 2,000 in Cobb. It's going to make a difference. 2,000 in Gwinnett County. Henry County, 4,000 net gain for Ossoff. So no matter what happens, based off everything that we've seen so far, Ossoff's lead is only going to expand. It is only going to expand. And that is the one thing that the Republican Party really wanted to avoid about last night's runoff elections. But unfortunately for them, they could not do it. Because once we see those votes reported, it's game over. Fox News, even Newsmax has already projected Raphael Warnock the winner in the Senate special election. These are media sources that would benefit insanely by not calling the race for the Democratic Party. But everyone knows it's a done deal. Everyone knows it's a done deal for Warnock and Loeffler. And Decision Desk HQ actually has already projected it for Jon Ossoff. They have already said that Jon Ossoff will win the Senate regular election. They've already projected it. So technically, you could say the Democratic Party has already won the United States Senate. But I'm still waiting on the Associated Press. I'm still going to wait for them to make their official characterization. Once all the ballots are reported, we can actually cover it super closely. But this is insane. I mean, this is something the Democratic Party left 2020 thinking they had no chance at the Senate, pouring a lot of money into these Senate runoff elections, thinking maybe. And last night it became a certainty that the Democratic Party would win at least one seat and most likely winning the United States Senate. And that's where the Republican Party really should be worried, because now we can actually go ahead and fill in this map. And you will actually see what the Senate races look like, or what the results look like based off the current United States Senate. This is actually a map before everyone. I guess they haven't included everyone that's going to get sworn in. I don't know why it doesn't include Arizona, because Mark Kelly had already been sworn in. We have to give the Republican seat to Alabama. We have Vermont. We have Maine. So this is the map as it stood prior to last night's elections. Well, after Georgia flipped once, okay, 51-49, the Republicans are still in the majority. But now that both have flipped, it's a 50-50 tie. So look at this map. This is what the map looks like based off of the overall Senate composition, right? So now we're at 50-50, and there is blue in Georgia, there is blue in Arizona, there is blue in Michigan, blue in Minnesota, in these contentious states, and there are Republicans that are up in Pennsylvania in 2022, Wisconsin in 2022. If this just matches the 2020 election results, Well, the Democrats win 52 seats in the United States Senate. Isn't that something? But, obviously that's something that needs to be seen. Ron Johnson has announced he will contest the election results, so I can't imagine that'd be helping him in his re-election bid. But all in all, last night's results prove one thing. The Democratic Party is extremely close to winning the United States Senate majority. And if they do, this will be something that was largely unexpected by many people. I thought David Perdue would narrowly win this seat, but it seems as if he's going to narrowly lose it. But for the Democratic Party, that works in their favor. And the Democratic Party should be extremely happy with last night's results. This should remind them of the 2017 Alabama Senate election, except this time, Senate control has just been taken away from Mitch McConnell. After the Democratic Party lost numerous seats in the United States Senate, they lost numerous seats that they could have won. The Democratic Party was hopeful about North Carolina. They were hopeful about Maine. They were hopeful about South Carolina, about Kansas, about Montana, about Alaska, about Iowa. These were all races that technically were winnable, but the Republican Party won them because Donald Trump brought a lot of Republicans over the finish line. But actually, as we're looking at the election results, right, as we're looking at where the Democratic Party did better last night, we will see that maybe the Southern Coalition can expand, that the Democratic Party in future elections could win in North Carolina, that they could win in Florida. But also, I find it very, ironic that Florida has no Democratic senators and Georgia has 2. And Georgia will have 1 through 2026. That will be Senator-elect Jon Ossoff. And in Georgia's Senate special election, Raphael Warnock, Senator-elect Raphael Warnock, will be up in 2022. But chances are he could do very well and win through 2028. So these are 2 long-lasting Democratic senators. They won't even be up in 2024 if they win in 2022. Jon Ossoff is set through 2024. So this state is making major changes in terms of where it stands politically. And I think that the Democratic Party should be very happy with the way that it's put right now. Because as soon as Jon Ossoff is declared the winner by the Associated Press, the Republican Party loses all hopes of the Senate majority. And as a result, it's going to have to see a number of things pass that they otherwise would have been able to block. We're talking about D.C. statehood. We're talking about $2,000 checks. We're talking about Puerto Rico statehood. We're talking about potentially, and I know the Republican Party hates this idea, but it's possible now that the Democratic Party has the Senate majority. But the courts could technically be packed. They could technically be packed. And I know that does worry some people about the precedent that it sets, but also the Democratic Party hasn't exactly taken an official stance on it. So we don't know exactly where they stand, but the Biden administration is probably ecstatic that they now can pass any type of nominee through the United States Senate, anyone in the Biden administration, and chances are Susan Collins and Mitt Romney and Lisa Murkowski are going to side with the Democrats on this one because they have no reason to oppose it, because it's going to pass without them, with or without them. And if they have constituents they want to appease, maybe not Murkowski or Romney, but they have made, I guess, a commitment to the Biden administration that they will do everything they can to ensure a peaceful transition and ensure a smooth movement of the new administration into the White House. The Collins very well could, and that would be a 51-49 votes, and there wouldn't even be a need for a Vice President Kamala Harris. But now that it's 50-50, really briefly, if you don't know what happens, Kamala Harris will break the tie. She will go into the United States Senate. She would vote, obviously, in favor of the Democratic Party, but she also is a registered member of the Democratic Party. Whichever political party that the Vice President is registered under, that is the party that gets the majority in a 50-50 tie. So say hello to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, I believe this is his first time ever being Senate Majority Leader. He didn't get it in 2018. He didn't get it in 2020. He got it in 2021. This is the first time that he will be the Senate Majority Leader in the United States. Mitch McConnell will now be the Senate Minority Leader following the Jon Ossoff projection, which is likely to come this afternoon. And if you remember, we followed the predicted map very closely through this election. It's a done deal. I mean, there's no one expects the Republican Party to come back in either of these 2 Georgia Senate races. It's a done deal. The Democratic Party won both of them practically. We still have to wait on that Jon Ossoff call, but I am confident, 99.99%. Jon Ossoff will win that Senate race, and it will be projected sometime soon. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch and then a playlist for my post-2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.